Harley Quinn Season 4 was back again this week with an all-new episode entitled Metamorphosis. Now, I'm Cape Joel, and this is the video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, while also shouting out any comic book Easter eggs or references I can find. So with that out of the way, let's get into it, shall we? In a shocking twist, this episode actually opens up with the funeral of Nightwing. At the end of the previous episode, it was left open-ended if Dick had actually died or if he was just knocked out. Really, the joke here is that the coffin needed to be specially designed as to accommodate Nightwing's big-ass ass. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't be surprised about a hero's death. Harley as a series has always had no problem killing AAA villains for jokes, so this choice certainly tracks. Again, I am almost 100% sure that he's not going to stay dead, especially as this episode made a point of showing off Talia al Ghul's Lazarus pits again. And I mean, really, I don't think the writers would hang that Chekhov's gun if they didn't intend to shoot it down the line. With Batman in jail and Nightwing now seemingly dead, a major target has been painted on the Bat family's back. Even third-tier supervillains like Toyman, here voiced again by Tom Hollander pulling double duty, are coming out of the woodwork to try and ice the rest of the team. A fact of which is causing the Bat family to crack under the ever-mounting pressure. Now, believe it or not, the death of Nightwing and the search for his killer is actually just one of several plot lines that made up this week's episode. We check back with the Joker following his return to villainy at the end of the last episode. Joker tells his family about his plans to break bad once again, and you'd think that they might actually have a problem with it, but no, they're surprisingly supportive and on his side about the whole thing. Well, for now they are. Like I keep saying, a major theme of this season of Harley is all about how starting a new career late in life, or in this case for the Joker, I guess restarting an old career late in life, puts a ton of strain on a relationship. This also means that Joker and Harley are kind of dealing with the same problem of feeling the pull back into the life of supervillainy. They're just dealing with it in two completely different ways. Then of course there's Poison Ivy, who's starting to have second thoughts about her brand new PR team and the sort of person they clearly want her to become, especially after the Johns take control of her social media feeds and make her say a bunch of stuff that she would never say. Speaking of the Johns, turns out they're not just another ploy by Lex Luthor to try and undermine Poison Ivy's rise through the supervillainous ranks. They're also not even human. They're some sort of nightmarish Lovecraftian creature that splits and divides over time. So, you know, regular everyday PR managers. Poison Ivy tries to stop them after they want her to be part of some sort of strange child pageant, but all she ends up doing is earning their wrath, meaning that if she wants out from under the John, she's gonna have to actually fight for it. Which she can't do alone, which means that Ivy has to swallow her pride and make peace with her young mentees, who in this episode are actually given the official team name, the Natural Disasters. And oh man, if the LOD wasn't some sort of thinly veiled wrestling reference, then calling them the Natural Disasters has to be, right? Hey, where's Typhoon and Earthquake? Thank you to all three people in the comment section who get what I'm talking about. Terra, Volcana, and Tefe are obviously hurt with how they were treated by Ivy in the last episode, but they end up burying the hatchet pretty quick once they understand where she's coming from. And I gotta say, I really love the Natural Disasters. They're great foils for Poison Ivy, especially in a season where she doesn't get to hang out with Harley as much and she kinda needs those characters to bounce off of. By far though, my favorite subplot from this week's episode actually involves the unlikely comedic pairing of King Shark and Jim Gordon. Shark is stressed because he has to bring his kids to work, but Jim is actually an expert on being a single working dad, and as such decides to help Shark turn the Legion of Doom offices into a proper daycare. Funches and Maloney have instant comedic chemistry here, and this story really humanizes Jim in a way we haven't seen in a while. He's just so willing to help another single dad, and there's something nice about that. Even if Jim's tactics on child rearing are a little half-assed and a little unusual, and oh boy, does this sure explain a lot about why Barbara is the way she is, isn't it? All I could think too watching this bit is, man, I really would love to see the Harley show bring in Jim Gordon Jr., Jim's son and Barbara's brother. Hey, maybe season 5. We also check back in with Harley sleepwalking this episode, as it's only getting worse and more elaborately stab-happy as time goes on. In fact, part of me wonders if this is some sort of red herring involving Nightwing's death. After all, he was found dead wearing one of Harley's friendship bracelets, and after kind of being mean to Harley too. Just a thought. Though I also really like the theory a fan shared in the comment section of my last video saying maybe Dick's death had something to do with the parrot and his handler who he offended during last week's episode. That would be funny. This episode also saw the introduction of longtime Bat family ally Lucius Fox, here voiced by the legendary Phil LaMarr. They need his tech expertise to try and track Nightwing in the lead up to his murder. Making things hard, though, is that Talia ends up spiriting away Damian, meaning that the family is now officially down to only 2 members. And you know what? Barbara really can't take any of these new setbacks. After all, Bruce left her in charge of the family when he went to jail, so if the team ends up up dying on her watch, she's probably never going to be able to forgive herself. Also, up until now, Barbara has been the peppy positive one, so to see her go into such a dark place this episode is some really strong character work from the writing team. And hey, speaking of character work, when Harley and Batgirl end up tracking one of Dick's tracers to the Legion of Doom headquarters, Harley is once again put in a really tough position, torn between her loyalty to her girlfriend and the rest of the Bat family, when it looks like Ivy either had Nightwing killed or is required by her new job to protect the person who did. Ivy is also way too busy to give Harley the time of day, as she plans to use the Little Miss Ivy pageant as a chance to tank her own public image and thereby robbing the Johns of all their power. This is some classic Season 1 era Ivy 2 with Lake Bell just getting to be mean to a bunch of little kids for a couple minutes straight. What's not to love? Strangely, this is also the first time they've even kind of looked in the direction of Ivy's origin, as they explain, yes, she was a normal, regular scientist, yes, she wasn't an accident, that's why her skin looks like that and why she can control plants. Ivy's plan ends up working and the Johns are forced to show their true colors, which ends up being a giant kaiju monster. Yeah, I didn't see that coming when I started the episode, I'll tell you that one for free. Ivy is able to beat the Johns with the help of her mentees, who get a nice chance to showcase their individual powers. Tefe especially getting to show how powerful they are by tapping into the red and weaponizing King Shark's own children, and giving the episode a small sense of dovetailing, at least at the very end. While that big fight is happening outside, inside, a liquored up Batgirl decides to start a barroom brawl with the rest of the LOD, who are actually celebrating Nightwing's supposed death. This is actually a fairly fun reversal of fortunes, as it's now Barbara acting impulsively and Harley needing to be the mature one, reining her in. The party, and by extension the fight, is crashed though by the Joker making his big public announcement about his return to supervillainy, including taking credit for the murder of Nightwing, and I mean, yeah, it wouldn't be the first Robin he killed. The death of Jason Todd is still very canon in the show, and when Harley was going through her contacts, we did see Red Hood in an earlier episode. Granted, I personally don't buy it. I think he's just trying to look more important than he actually is in front of the other villains. This episode also ends on probably the most dour and serious note of the season so far, with Harley rejected by Barbara and the Bat family, as well as ignored by Poison Ivy, who, while she may have defeated the Johns, it's made abundantly clear that their corrupting influence is still sticking around and hanging over her head. And then, just to really throw a wrench into things, the final scene of the episode involves Harley having an out-of-body experience and seeing herself at the other end of the room, implying that this may be another side effect of her sleepwalking. And so that was Metamorphosis, and to be honest, this episode was a little all over the place, still very funny in parts, don't get me wrong, it just felt more like a collection of smaller subplots than it did any one major narrative. In fact, for my money, things only really started cooking right at the very end of the episode, as everything around Harley started to come undone. I guess we also have a murder mystery now in the season. Who killed Nightwing? Which, in fairness, for a comedy show, this was actually a pretty well-constructed mystery. We already have several potential suspects, clues, and red herrings. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say Talia al Ghul, because she's still the overarching villain of the show. But I guess only time will tell on that one. Character-wise, the supporting cast got to have some fun moments to shine in this episode. The series might be called Harley Quinn, but it's not always about her, and I'll be interested to see what next week brings with it. So until then, everyone, this has been Cape Joel. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram so you always know when a brand new Harley video is about to drop. So until we meet again, everyone, bye-bye.